Aki has had a little bit of a rough upbringing, and maybe you're in the exact same shoes that he himself has been in, or maybe you've lost everything. Maybe everything hasn't gone the way that you wanted it to go. I know that this has happened for me personally, and just as a heads up, this video is only for people that are wanting to improve, have a more well-rounded life, understand different concepts by using an anime character as a reference so that they can improve in any way, shape, or form. So if that's not for you, you can click off the video and go watch some other anime or cat video or something like that online. I just want to put that out as a disclaimer for you so you aren't wasting your time. Whereas if you're wanting to learn something from this, then by all means, stick to it, because I want to talk about how Aki had to lose everything for him to be able to become more of everything that he had ever have become. And this is at least something that I keep telling myself over and over and over again, because I had been working so hard, and this is going to get a little bit more personal than maybe some other videos have done. So I worked so hard in my early 20s. I was reading books, I was meditating, I do a lot of walk, self-inquiry, which I still do that as well too. That, don't get me wrong, I still do it. I don't do it as much as I did in my early 20s. My early 20s, I felt like I had something to prove, which I still kind of do in a sense, don't get me wrong. But it's a different dynamic. It's a different way of proving. It's a different reason for doing what I'm doing, but it's also still the same reason. It's strange, it's complicated. Nonetheless, when I was younger, when I was in my early 20s, it was always go to work, do this thing, come home, study, go to the gym, figure this out. And it was great. And then I started learning about these different ideas, these different concepts. I started learning about the power of the imagination by this guy called Neville Goddard. I started learning a little bit more about metaphysics. I started to see things that I would never see. It's kind of like how Aki had to go through this experience of having his whole house demolished before he was able to have the life that he is in right now. And this is why I say you don't want to judge people with where they're at, because you don't know the past or the experiences that they had prior to where they're at in this said moment. All you know is where they are at currently, and all you're going to be doing is then projecting your own perception of yourself onto that other person in some way, shape, or form, because you figured that they have gone through the same things. And if you ever get upset over something that somebody has said to you, then that typically means that you have a belief, even though that person doesn't necessarily know who you are or your whole background, or you have talked with that person kind of like I do in the coaching sessions, which you can book down below, completely free for the first one. After that, there is a charge that does come associated with it. Kind of one of those things where I can poke the buttons and I can get the thing out of you that needs to be gotten out of you. So that's not necessarily a projection, but that can be a little bit of an upsetting thing that most people aren't wanting to have, because they don't want to have their whole house and their whole life demolished, kind of like mine was, because my life was able to be demolished in my own free will and my own free volition, even though I could also say that it was divinely orchestrated, which it has been, and it's been great. And I'm at that point where I ended up leaving one of the jobs, and I basically used up all of the money that I had over this past year, that I had acquired over the past 7 years of my life, 8 years of my life basically, to take off a year to understand my emotions, to dive deep into other ideas or concepts and explore these things. Because one of the ideas of what I was just briefly touched on is the power of the imagination. It was a interesting concept, and I don't know how to best describe this other than giving you my personal experience with this whole area. So I was going snowboarding with one of my buddies a couple of months ago. Actually, it was about a couple of years ago, I would say, but then time's also an illusion, and we could touch on that as well too if you really want me to. I think I have in a couple of other videos, but nonetheless, him and I, we were snowboarding, and I ended up leaving the dude and going through the trees, and I hadn't seen him for maybe a couple of hours, I feel like. And then all of a sudden I'm in the trees, I'm snowboarding, I'm having a good time, and I'm I need to find my buddy, I need to get to him, we need to I'd like to reconnect with him and see if everything's going well for him, because it's been a while since I've seen him. He was hanging out with these other people, and I don't want to just leave him high and dry. And then as soon as I come out of the trees and I look up the hill, and it's a big mountain, and then all of a sudden there he is right there. I'm how does that work? How do these things happen? And it's because once you're able to be in tune and in touch with certain things, then you can start to understand what your powers are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, how you can use these things, how you can predict the future, how you can have these abilities that very few people do have. And that's where I say being able to understand that sometimes you have to break everything down before you can be built back up can be one of the hardest things to do and to understand. But that's the thing that I keep telling myself, and I'm if I keep telling myself, eventually it does become true. It's just how I've been able to see these things in the past, where I'm just like, hey, I'm the world's greatest salesman, and then I'm able to outsell other people. It's just like, hey, I am this most powerful being. Then all of a sudden, like, I become that person where it's like, I am a great YouTuber, or I am reaching the exact audience that I need to reach, or I am having the impact that I'm needing to have. And like, I say these things, and all of a sudden they become true, because there's this concept where you have to be able to break down all of your past beliefs. Because if you think about it, and I was talking to this about one of my friends the other day, just briefly at the gym, and we had this conversation where I was talking about how, like, he was asking about ghosts, and I was like, yeah, but sometimes you have experiences that, like, you can't really describe. Like, it's like, so have you seen something? I'm like, I don't necessarily see things. I more sense things. I more feel things. I can more touch into certain things, like how you can tell when there's, like, something here, there's something there, and, like, whether or not I need to move forward or whether I need to not move forward. And it's one of those things where, like, I just have that, like, sixth sense, which we all have. Sometimes more other people's sixth sense is just more developed than, like, yours is or mine is or whatever it may be. And you can develop it over time, because it's a muscle just like anything else. Like going to the gym, you go to the gym, you put in the reps, you do the reps every single day, you build up that muscle. You want to build up your intuition muscle, like go out and do things and just, like, trust yourself to get back. Like one of the ways that I would say to do this is, like, go on a walk or a bike ride or a run or something like that, and don't bring your phone. Like, don't look at the directions, and just trust your intuitive internal guide to bring you back to where you need to be brought back to, because you always know where you have to go. Like, your mind knows where it needs to take you. Sometimes we just distract ourselves with these other things that we don't need to distract ourselves with. And that's why I say, like, I had to leave a place that I really enjoyed, that I worked really hard for, to be able to get to, because I felt like, and I just knew somehow, I'm like, if I can do this for this other company, then, like, who says that I can't do this for myself? And there has been this struggle. There has been this back and forth tug of war, because I'm like, I need it to be perfect. I need it to be amazing. I need it to be, like, the most wonderful, miraculous thing. But then I realized, I'm like, they bring on Denji, or they bring on Aki, they bring on these other, like, hunters, and they aren't perfect right off the bat. Like, they don't have everything figured out. Like, they're just, like, figuring it out as they go. Each day they're bringing up new opportunities. They're bringing up new things that they learn. They figured out one thing that they were good at, and it's like, oh, this person has potential. Let me give this person the opportunity to prove themselves, or to, like, grow their potential, or to grow their career, to grow their income, or to grow their fighting capabilities, or to grow themselves, because, like, it seems like I can see something within this person. Like, especially I can do this a lot when I look into people's eyes. I can be like, okay, there's a lot of sadness here, there's a lot of happiness here, there's a lot of joy here, there's a lot of, like, suffering here, there's a lot of potential here, there's a lot of drive, whatever it may be. Like, I can do that through the eyes and through the words that the person says. It's taken me some time to get to this point, and the only reason I can do this now is because I had to have a lot of failures where, like, I lose everything, where, like, I have, like, everything to just get, like, demolished within front of me. And there's this time when, it was before COVID happened, when I was talking with a roommate of mine, and I was telling her, it's like, yeah, it just seems like nothing's going my way, and it's like I'm just getting tested before this next great thing happens, which is exactly what had happened. Like, it took a little bit longer than maybe it originally needed to, but it also was, like, in the exact way that it had to have happened. So, like, I was talking to her about that said thing, and then all of a sudden it's just like we got led to this other point. Once we got led to the other point, then all of a sudden I was like, yeah, I get it, I understand it. And it was weird, because, like, when I told that to her, like, I knew that the universe, God, was testing me in some way, or proving, like, the strength that I had, the resolve that I had to overcome these things. And then that's when I ended up, like, moving out, getting kind of kicked out of the house, but not really necessarily getting kicked out of the house. It was of my own free volition. And I just remember, like, when I was driving back home, this was one of those moments where, like, I lost the house, kind of like Aki did. Like, I lost the family. I lost, like, everything that I had, and I was, like, in utter shock. And I was just, like, driving 4.5 hours home, I was just like, no radio, which I had done that multiple times beforehand, but it was just fascinating to me. I was just like, what just happened? Like, I just packed up everything and I just left, because I didn't want to feel the way that I wanted to feel. And I could always do that again too. To me personally though, like, I don't know, bro, like, I don't want to have to move back. I'd rather, like, continue to be on my own. I like being on my own. It's fun. It's exciting. Obviously, like I was talking about in the other video that I did the other day, where having a strong relationship is also key and essential. But sometimes you have to break down who you are to figure out, like, let me rephrase that. It's more of, sometimes you have to break down who you thought you were to become more of who you actually are. Because I took the time off and I didn't talk to a lot of people. All I did was I meditated. I started to, like, listen to all these other concepts from all these other people, and I was like, wow, this is great. But I was kind of like, I wouldn't say I was killing myself in the process, but there was this feeling that it was like, this is the right thing for me to do at the time. And now all of a sudden, like, I've gone back to like what I love doing, of talking to people, of like having conversations, of like building relationships, of like just listening and perceiving, even though the people that have like in the past have broken down my house and have hurt me and have shocked me, as I was talking about just a moment ago. Those are moments that have led me to be able to be closer to those that I need to be closer with. Because from me having the house get broken down, from me like getting kicked out, kind of like how Aki had to get his house blown down, and then all of a sudden he became a great hunter, even though his whole thing is like completely different. I'm not going to go into that because I don't want to spoil that for anybody who hasn't read the manga. But like when I had to have, like when I got kicked out of the house from where I was at beforehand and had to move back home, then all of a sudden like my relationships with like my family became so much better. And I didn't see it right away. It started to happen, like this was more lately. It's like, yeah, now the person, like everybody was single at the time, and then like 2 of them are in relationships now, and they're like, the people that they're with, they're like, they really remind me of you. And I'm like, wow, thank you. Like, I appreciate that. But I had to have my house be burnt down and broke down and everything else be destroyed for them to come to that realization, or for them to say that to me. And I'm like, thank you. Like, it hasn't been easy for me. So like hearing that from you is like, it's wonderful. And then having another member of my family, and she's like, yeah, you seem a lot different. Like, you seem to be more, like, you seem to have more depth. And I'm like, thank you. Because she at one point had said something to me that like completely broke down one of my houses, and I had to like go on this whole journey to be like, like, I'm not who you think I am. I'm much more. And I had to kind of go through that experience. I had to go through that journey. I had to show that I'm not this like just surface level stuff, because it's never anything that I have been. But like, that's one of those, and it's not even a but, and it's one of those things where like the house has to be broke down for it to be able to thrive again. So like I broke down my career house as well too, which to me, it was the thing that needed to be done. Like, it was a thing that had to be done, because if you know anything about astrology as well too, I know I've touched on like human design, which if you ever looked up your chart, awesome, that's cool. I'd still like to hear about that. And that's where we can talk about it on like the call that I was talking about just a little bit ago. If that's something you want to dive into, more than welcome to do that with you as well too. In regards to astrology, I was telling this to one of the other people that I ended up meeting and coaching, consulting type of thing, because like when we have relationships, it's like a mutual one where I'm helping you and you're helping me, but like you're not necessarily helping. Like it's weird. We can always explain it like more on the call. But basically she was like looking at my chart, and I'd let her know the day that I ended up like leaving the job that I was at, and she's like, I've never seen something like this. Like, I had a perfect triangle like on my chart, and I was like, yeah, it's just, I know when the right time to do the thing is, and that's why I know that this is the right time for me to go off and like share these things. And if it comes to something, cool. If not, cool. I just figure I'm going to share this because I want to be of service to you in the best ways that I know how to, so that if you want to break down your house, or if your house has been broken down and you want to find like the little ways to like figure this out in the correct way, that's where I can come into, because I've had my house broken down so many times. Sometimes with intention, sometimes not with intention. Sometimes it just happens because sometimes that's just what life does. Even though I look at it from a point of view of like, life is here to serve you, life is here to benefit you, life is here to help you grow, life is here to show you like different aspects of yourself that you might not necessarily have been aware of in the first place. And then the more you see that, it's like, oh wow, okay, this is something that I didn't know was possible. And now that I know that this wasn't or is possible, now I have this whole different opportunity that I didn't necessarily know existed in the first place. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly how it's supposed to be. That's exactly how it has been. It's just sometimes we have to go to the depths before we can rise up high. It's kind of like a rubber band. Like rubber bands, like they don't do anything when they're just like stagnant. Yeah, once you like put it on your finger, like if you did with the kid, and like you try to shoot it, like you have to pull it back before it can go forward. And by the time you pull it back, like it may be like a couple of inches or so, but it's gonna fly a couple of feet, depending on the rubber band. I mean, it could fly. It'll fly further than the amount of distance that you do stretch. And this is where I say, like, you have to go down to the depths. At least this is what I've come to realize. By like leaving a job, by leaving the place that I was at, by leaving something that I truly enjoyed and loved to find more of who I am and what I want and like what I value, was a very impactful experience for myself. It was very hard. It's been very challenging, but I've always come to realize that I find strength in pain. So I had to kind of go through that pain. Plus, I didn't understand how to differentiate or like disassociate myself, or like detach myself. I should say detach, not disassociate myself from my emotions, because my emotions was like the house that I had to like break down, because like it was just, there was too much overwhelmingness, and I just had to kind of like explore that. Whereas now, and I might have touched on this on another video, but I just remember like I felt bad breaking down in front of like other people because they're like, they don't need to see this. They don't need to have this garbage. So like I ended up leaving, which in reality I could have stayed, but I was too immature at the time. I didn't understand that I wasn't emotionally mature enough. So I ended up leaving. And now that I've left, it's just like I have had a great experience with me just like going on like a little staycation around here. I rode my bike a lot. I rebuilt the house. Like I've refunctioned the house. Like I've put it back into working order. And now I'm just ready to like share this with you and like give these experiences and make a lot of money in the process. I'm just being transparent with you. Like money is, sadly, I've tried multiple different times. Maybe not sadly, but I've tried multiple different times to find different routes and ways to go about it. But like, if I can help you find your mindset and make a lot of money in the process, that's what I'm going to do. Because we live in a world that is full of abundance, that has more than enough to go around. And I know you may think it's just like, because you hear from all these other people of like how they can't get by or they can't do this or they can't do that. And I'm like, that's because that's just the world that they themselves have lived in. Where I'm in a different world where I see all of these other people making all this types of money. And I'm just like, see, it's possible. And all I have to know is that it's possible. Once I know that it's possible, that gives me the inspiration to go out and do that said thing. And that's what I'm trying to do with you as well too. It's like, if you want to figure out how to like budget yourself better, if you want to figure out how to like have better communication, if you want to figure out like, hey, I burnt down my house or my house got destroyed, like what am I supposed to do? I'm shocked, like I'm kind of stuck. And that's where I'm like, I have me come in and I help you out, just as like everybody else in the anime community, everybody else in the anime world, and any sort of anime has a teacher, has a instructor, has a guru, has someone who has helped them evolve and grow and change. And that's what I'm here to do for you. And if that is something that you're interested in, like I said, you can book a call. If your house has been burnt down or broken down, or like it seems like your life is completely demolished and destroyed, all I can say, dude, is just keep going, bro. Like, you don't know what's going to be on the other side. You don't know the next conversation, the next interaction, the next video, the next person, the next series, whatever it may be, that's just going to like start that spark within your mind. That's going to help you evolve and change and have an impact and do everything that you've ever wanted to do. Sometimes it just has to come down to you destroying and demolishing everything that you once knew to be true to be able to build something new, because sometimes you maybe have built like a rough foundation or something along those lines, and you want to build a skyscraper, but like you're only in like a one building house, and it's like, oh, I want to have to tear this down, but I kind of have to, because now that I see what is truly possible and what is truly capable, I have to start from scratch, even though I'm not really starting from scratch, because now I have different building material, I have different communication styles, I have different ways of interacting, I have new information that I never had beforehand, I can connect dots in different ways, I have a new power, I have a new understanding, I have a new way of being, I have a new like depth of knowledge that I didn't originally have in the first place. And now I know that like if I can solve this one problem for this one person, then I can also solve this other problem for this other person, because this person has a similar problem to this other person, and then I can just get paid on recurring monthly ways to be able to do things like that. So I can always do that as well too, where I could just develop a community. Maybe I will for us, like if that's something that you're interested in, and maybe I'll do a community post on that as well, where yes, there would be a monthly fee, and the only reason that there's a monthly fee for that community, and I know some of you might be like, I'm so tired of all these monthly fees, everybody's charging me monthly stuff, and it's just like, yeah, bro, that's sadly just the world that we live in right now, and that's where you have to be able to delegate your time and your money in the ways that you think are going to best serve you. So if you're in a place where you're like, I feel sad, I feel alone, I feel like my house has just been demolished and I don't know what to do, and I'm living at home, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. Let's get you out of that position. I know exactly what we can do to help you out, and if it just involves chatting and having conversations, then we'll do that. And if it's something where it's just like, I need advice, I need suggestions, we'll do that, because I tailor my stuff to you and to the community and to everybody else. So with that being said, I'll wrap up the video here, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video.